Today I'm going to show you how to do math lessons for the 4.5 and 4.6 lessons. I don't teach it exactly how the book is having it being done, so I will show you kind of the best way for the students that I have shown them how to do it. So if you are not a part of my class, this is probably not the best video for you to watch, and you should watch how your teacher is explaining it, because 4.6, I do it exactly how we did it for 4.5. It has shown the best results and the best scores doing it this way. So what both of these lessons are about is how to multiply decimals that are decimals and decimals. So the last video I made, so 4.3 and 4.4 were decimal multiplied by a whole number. So today we are doing a decimal and a decimal. And we have our same math diary page as always. Line up multiplication like regular, and right now we are not worried about the decimals. That's just like the other page. Then you just regularly multiply. So you line up your multiplication like regular, not thinking about the decimals, and then you multiply. You only line up your decimals if you're adding and subtracting. Then you count how many times the decimal moves in both numbers, and we'll talk about what that means. You add the movement numbers, and I put that in quotation marks because that's just kind of what we call those movement numbers. And then this is how many times you will move the decimal in your answer. So I will show you an example. The students have been doing really well on this. Okay, so here we have two numbers. They both have a decimal. So I am going to multiply 3.2 times 1.5. It just so happens that these decimals line up. Typically in multiplication, I am not worried about the decimals lining up. That's only for adding and subtracting. This time it randomly does. So I write my multiplication problem like regular, and I don't even care about the decimals right now. So 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15, but I need to add 1. So 15 plus 1 is 16. Draw the collar, drop your egg, and then you need to erase what's on top. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. Now I can add it up. So far, this is just regular multiplication. Nothing new has gone on here. Now this is when the decimals come into play. So what I need to look at is how many numbers are after my decimal? How many numbers are after my decimal? So in this one, there is one number after your decimal, or you can think of that as a movement. Here, I would have to move my decimal one time to get to the end, or you can think of it as how many numbers are after your decimal. So however you want to think of it, if you want to think of it, how many times do you have to move your decimal until it gets to the end? Or if you want to count how many numbers come after the decimal. Regardless, there's one number after the decimal here, so I wrote a 1. There's one number after the decimal here, so I wrote a 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So that means down here, I need to have 2 numbers after my decimal in my final answer. So that means 3.2 times 1.5, or 3 and 2/10 times 1 and 5/10 is 4 and 80 hundredths. So once again, I counted my movements. So I said, okay, there's one number after my decimal here, so I put a 1. One number after my decimal here, so I put a 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, so I need to have 2 numbers after my decimal. And I can do a few more examples. The kids have done very, very well in these. So I always tell the students, put the number with the most digits on top when you're multiplying, because it doesn't matter when you multiply. Now, once again, when I multiply, I am not worried about lining up the decimals. That is not a factor. That's only when I'm adding and subtracting. So right now I put the decimals in, but I'm now just going to multiply like regular. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 0 is 0, but I need to add 1, so that's 1. And then 3 times 0 is 0. draw a collar, drop an egg, erase what's on top. 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 0 is 0. Add it up. So far this is regular multiplication. I have not done anything fancy. This is called the turtle method. I've made a video on that before. So now I need to count my movements. So let's see. In my first number, I have 2 numbers after my decimal, so I'm going to write a 2. In my second number, I just have 1 number after my decimal. So 2 plus 1 is 3. So that tells me I need to have 3 numbers after my decimal. You could count if you wanted and say 1, 2, 3. Regardless, you need to make sure that your decimal, and then you have 3 numbers after. Some students like to do the loops, some just like to count. You have to make sure that you are moving your decimal to the correct location. And we can do a few more of these. Okay, so same thing here. I'm not necessarily worried about lining up my decimals, although this time it did work. I'm going to draw my turtle. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 9 is 27. Draw a collar, drop your egg, erase what's on top. If you have not heard of this, all this is saying is I am done with my ones place value, so I'm putting a 0 in there as a placeholder. Now I'm starting with my tens place. So 0 times 1 is 0, and 0 times 9 is 0 also. Okay, so far, regular multiplication. Now you need to go back and count. There's 1 number after my decimal here. There's 1 number after my decimal here. 1 plus 1 is 2, so I need to have 2 numbers after my decimal in my final answer. And I can show you one more example. Like I said, the students have been doing really well on this. So I can do 4 and 6 tenths times 3 and 2 hundredths. Now, once again, because you're multiplying, it does not matter. 4 times 3 is 12, just like 3 times 4 is 12. So you don't have to worry about that. I always put the number with the more digits on top. Okay, now I'm just going to do my regular multiplication. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 0 is 0, and then plus 1 is 1. 6 times 3 is 18. Draw the collar, drop an egg, and erase what's on top. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 3 is 12. 2, 9, 8, 3, 1. Now I need to go back and count. So up here, I have 2 numbers after my decimal. And here I have 1 number after my decimal. So 2 plus 1 is 3. So that means you need to have 3 numbers after your decimal when you're done. So this answer is 13 and 892 thousandths. So once again, this is for lessons 4.5 and 4.6. I am not doing it exactly how Envision is showing it. I have just found that this works the best for most of my students. Make sure that your students are taking home this math diary. We have examples in here. I tell you step by step how to do it. This is a great tool that the students will use. I've had a lot of students that go on to 6th grade that tell me that they still use this, even in 7th grade. So please make sure if they're not understanding the homework to have them take this home, watch the video, and look at their math diary at the same time.